Hey folks, how you doing? Bill Hoy here. What in the world's going on? This is probably going to be my last video for a while, I think, because nobody's really paying much attention to these videos. They're not getting any views, so I got other things I got to start getting prepared for, folks. And I can tell you right now, got some good articles here on Activist Post, and you got to really start getting prepared for what's going on, folks, because this whole situation, lockdowns, virus, all this stuff, it's just getting started, folks. And I'm telling you right now, Donald Trump he's just playing his part, trying to keep people pacified. Since the start of this, folks, 26 million people have filed for unemployment. 26 fucking million people, man. Wow. 26 million people, man. That's crazy. 26 million people. That's crazy, dude. And that's only going to get worse, folks. Just getting started. Folks, you can't just flip the switch on this. Can't just flip the switch on this. And here's a good article: Pandemic and Economic Collapse, the Next 60 Days. This is on Activist Post. It's by Brandon Smith. And I think this guy's on it pretty well. I think he's really my computer's slow right now. But the article is very good, and it talked about, and here it is, we're up. From the article, right there. Okay, I'm gonna paraphrasing. The author Brandon Smith wants to focus specifically on the economic side of this, and the author says, yes, that's right. If you think the reopening of the economy is going to be widespread or that it will last, don't get your hopes up. And Brandon's using a 60-day model because he says, and I think he's on this. Brandon, the author, says, I have observed that the average non-aware person appears to be about 2 months behind those of us in the liberty movement in terms of seeing the dangers ahead. And he's got that right. I'm going to tell you something right now, folks. Before I continue with this, I might continue with this article, but I really want to hammer this home. And this is really probably going to be the title of this video, somewhere along these lines. And that is, folks, while there are positives in this that could possibly, spot fires that could start, the truth is, folks, is that really, especially with the anti-lockdowners, these anti-lockdowners are just basically like a foundation getting ready to crumble. All you have to do is kick about one brick out and it's all going to fall, because once again, these anti-lockdowners, the majority of these anti-lockdowners are resting their laurels on not on principles but on logic. And logic's a great thing. Logic is, if you really do some good sound logic, you can break down the whole nonsensical belief in government. But this has got to be about principle, and if it's not about principle, it's going to lose. And these anti-lockdowners are basically saying this lockdown, we want this lockdown. First thing, they're asking for this lockdown to be. First thing, folks, let's just look at the level of consciousness here. We're all asking for this lockdown to end when we should just go about our lives and say, screw you, we're gonna live our lives the way we're gonna live our lives, and we don't care. And you know what, folks, that's what I'm doing, and I'm getting ready to really start doing in a big way. And you know what, whatever the consequences to me are going to be the consequences. These anti-lockdowners are basically saying this COVID-19 virus is not something serious enough to warrant this kind of lockdown, and I'm telling you right now, man, you're setting yourself up. You're setting yourself up. I mean, I'll tell you right now, if I was an Edward Bernays, I mean, it'd be super easy. All I would say is, all right, guys, if I was an Edward Bernays, a public relations person, propaganda person, you know, the people that, you know, work for these think tanks and all that kind of stuff. I would just say, look, this is going to be easy. This is going to be easy. All we got to do is just time it right and, you know, spike up, maybe, you know, spike up some more, you know, COVID-19 breakouts, skew some numbers more, or, you know, release something a little bit more deadly, not too deadly, because I'll tell you right now, folks, these bio level 4 labs here just in the United States, not to mention, you know, China's the Wuhan lab is a bio level 4 that the U.S. was doing research with China. Look into that. Gary Null's done a lot of research into that. He's got a lot of experts talking about that. That really there was a collaboration, and that lab is the center of the release, one of the releases. But you have to, you know, if I was an Edward Bernays, I would just say all we got to do is spike up a little bit of the virus a little bit more, and these people will crack. Probably don't even have to release a worse virus, which once again, these bio level 4 labs have viruses that could wipe out the entire world's population. I don't think they're going to do that, folks, because they still need us to carry out this agenda. But once this agenda is complete, AI is complete, 5G is complete, I think that's when the really, really, really bad stuff is going to start really happening. It's just, this isn't bad enough. This is horrible. But all they have to do is spike this up. It's too easy. I mean, it's really too easy. I mean, these anti-lockdown protesters, because they're not based on principle, they're based on the logic of, well, this COVID-19 doesn't warrant this. All they have to do is spike it up a little bit more, and those people are going to crack. They're going to fold their cards. It's like playing poker against somebody, and the anti-lockdowners put out a, you know, decent, say, relatively good percentage of a pot-sized bet, and then the propagandists reach. All they do is just reach for a big stack of their chips and grab the chips, and then barely start moving their hand forward, and the anti-lockdowners fire their cards right into the muck. That's what's going to happen, folks. These people are going to fold like nobody's business. Because that's exactly what's going to happen, folks. That's what I would do. That's what I would do. I mean, you look at one scenario, you know, you get the president to, oh, everybody, don't worry, the economy's going to open, and then fire out, and then spike up a little bit more COVID-19, and everybody's going to crack. The anti-lockdown movement will, 80%, I'd be willing to bet, of the anti-lockdown movement will fold their cards in a minute. And there you have it, folks. That's how easy this is going to be to topple. And once again, I think there's positives in this. I think that if people were to start really getting informed, that they'll be able to see that these psychopaths that are running the world, unfortunately only because we allow them to, and we acquiesce to them, and we teach our children to join their order following organizations. I think they've shown their hand. They've shown their hand. It's out there for us to see. It's plainly obvious. It's really it's like going back to the poker scene. It's really like the propagandists have their the elite has their cards right on the table for the anti-lockdowners to see. I mean, but I guess the anti-lockdowners refuse to look at their cards. Just look at their cards. They're showing you their cards. They're showing you their hand. But, folks, I do think it is possible that there could be an awakening, but not without horrendous, intense suffering. And to be quite, folks, I got to stick with the way I see things. I don't see it happening. But because I mean, especially these anti-lockdowners are they're gonna fold like nobody's business. This isn't over at all, folks. This isn't over at all. You know, from this article, I don't think I ever even told you the name of the article. It was Pandemic and Economic Collapse the Next 60 Days. I'm not sure if I said the name. But, right. Here's a big one. Lockdown protests, this is from the article, are sparking up across the country, and it's only going to get worse from now on. Understand, though, that establishment elites probably expected this. See, these people know what they're doing, folks. People are... This is just too easy. It's just too easy for them, especially in the U.S., and they are planning to use civil unrest to their advantage. And here it is. Here's one possible play. Don't be surprised if some areas of the country do indeed reopen next month, but expect these locations to be primarily rural. And then I'm just skipping over. I want to get to the part. At least, I mean, things aren't going to return completely to normal. They can't. I'm not an economist, but you shut down the economy for this long, the ripple effects are just long lasting. Okay. He says he thinks that he says that he's heard that the author that there's a narrative being pushed by the mainstream media that rural states and counties are about to be crushed by the virus. So let me tell you something. It's not a prediction. That's what they're scheduling. That's what they're scheduling, folks. And these anti-lockdowners are going to crack. Once again, I'm reading a little bit from the article here and adding my own stuff. Once again, the article on Activist Post, Brandon Smith, Pandemic and Economic Collapse in the Next 60 Days. Look it up, read it for yourself. Yeah, folks, once again, if you're a person who does not understand that freedom comes before health, safety, and life, you're going to be easily played out. And I'm telling you right now, folks, once again, I think I've said this in, posts I've done on websites and videos. I know what I'm doing. I'm fighting. I'm not living in a society like China. I'm not taking any COVID-19 test. I'm not taking any vaccine. I'm not going to sit by and cry while members of my family are ripped out of my home. Ain't happening, Jack. It ain't happening, Jack. You come to my house and try to rip a family member out of my home, you better be ready for a fight to the death, buddy. That's right. You better be ready for a fight. Come to my house, you better be ready for the fight of your life. And I mean a fight. I'm not talking about, let me see where I'm at time-wise. I'm not talking about, doing the passive resistance thing where you play dead and they got to pick you up and all that kind of stuff, or just, verbally challenging them. I'm talking about fighting like a maniac. Fighting like you couldn't even. It's gonna take a lot of guys to subdue me. And I'm not some big tough guy or nothing. What I'm saying is I'm gonna be fighting it's gonna be all out, balls to the fucking wall. you come to my house and try to rip a family member out of my house. You better be ready for war. It ain't happening, man. And folks, I'm not living in a society like China. I'm not. Rather be dead, because folks, freedom comes before health, safety, and life. And you know what, folks? Even if my own family members were dying of some virus or this virus or whatever, I'd still be saying the same thing. Still be saying the same thing. And these anti-lockdown protesters, most of them are not resting on this. They're just resting on, well, this virus doesn't warrant this. Well, what will warrant it then, folks? What will warrant it? Let me look at a title I saw, which here it is. Here's a title that reflects this. Let me check this article out. There's no empirical evidence for these lockdowns. Well, yeah, I mean, that's true, but once again, you know, what evidence will there be for lockdowns when these viruses get worse? That's where we're headed, folks. That's how these people are going to crack. That's how these people are going to crack. You know, and they're saying we don't know the actual death rate. And yeah, I mean, all these things are all just, yes, it's true. This whole thing, it does not logically warrant a lockdown. But once again, when you rest on that, that's so easy to manipulate. All they have to do is spike up the figures, deaths, release something a little bit more, release some virus or bacteria that's a little bit worse or whatever, man. And then all of a sudden, okay, there's enough evidence for a lockdown. No, dude. There's never enough evidence. There's never, let me rephrase that. There's never a reason to relinquish rights. I don't care what's happened. I don't care if 100 million people in the United States are dropping dead from some virus. You do not forego the Constitution. Now, of course, let me be very clear here, folks. If you're concerned about contracting a virus or spreading a virus, take the means to protect yourself, protect others. Nothing wrong with that. Take, people who may be vulnerable, help those people out, stuff like that. Nothing wrong with that. What I'm talking about is forced lockdowns at the barrel of a gun, and that's no good. And folks, these anti-lockdown protesters are going to be easily cracked, because this situation is just beginning and it's going to get worse. There's going to be more cases, and the situation's only going to get worse, folks. And this is going to be it for me, because you know what, folks, it's just I may try a little bit talking on Facebook or something. I mean, I'm not giving up, don't get me wrong. I got to really start thinking about what the hell I'm going to do, folks, because I got kids, and I gotta try to think what the hell I'm going to do in this situation. I'm living in America, New Jersey. New Jersey, New York, Philly area is the absolute ground zero of this in the United States, and folks, let me just be blunt here. There's nowhere to run. This is coming everywhere, unless we awaken in consciousness and realize, face our fears, let go of our fears, and not letting them control us, and realize that we all have free will, and that freedom is more important than health, safety, and life. Then we'll free ourselves. But until then, this is just going to get worse. And unfortunately, here in the United States, I'm on ground zero, and I got a family to start thinking about. Not to start thinking about. I've been thinking about it for a while. Maybe I'll do a video on how over the past few years I've been, thinking about preparing for this. But I gotta start thinking about what I'm gonna do with, my kids, and try to get them to a safer place. Once again, nowhere to run. This is coming everywhere. Nowhere to run. But some places are better in the short term, where maybe they have a chance of surviving this. Maybe. I don't know. But I got to start thinking about this stuff. So, folks, don't get your hopes all up with these anti-lockdown protesters, because once this situation gets worse, they're going to fold their cards in a millisecond. So that's it. Good luck.